Edition, Brad Pomerance in our Sacramento Bureau, joined today by Thomas Lawson. He is the president of the California Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition. Before we talk about some groundbreaking, pioneering legislation that passed recently, I'd like to ask you, what is a natural gas vehicle?
Well, it's a good question, and thank you for having me on. I'm
Sure.
happy to be here to talk about some of these important issues. A natural gas vehicle is going to be a vehicle that runs on either CNG, which is compressed natural gas.
I've seen that decal, for example, on buses.
Yes. We really operate in some of the larger vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles. Vehicles are divided into class, so the higher classes, 6, 7, and 8, are your larger vehicles.
Okay.
Your waste trucks
Sure.
and heavy duty trucks. So this vehicle will run on CNG, compressed natural gas, LNG, liquefied natural gas, and RNG, which is renewable natural gas, or also known as biomethane.
Got it.
So that's a vehicle.
And so we don't anticipate that we will see natural gas vehicles for the consumer market. Not necessarily the best fit.
Correct. Not necessarily the best fit. And the infrastructure for consumers, I don't think, is there. And we also feel like you get better return on your investment when you deploy a natural gas vehicle in a heavy-duty sector, because these are the trucks that are on the road all day long.
Right. Every
day, all day. And if you look at the map of where the dirtiest areas are in California, they're on these trade corridors, where trucks are going up and down, up and down.
So when we think about alternative fuel vehicles, the first thing we think of is there range?
Correct.
So with natural gas, there is range. Explain why.
Because it still is a fuel, and there are, and a lot of our members are involved in this, have done a great job of building this infrastructure. I think California can do more. We can do better in that regard, but I think we've done a great job of building that infrastructure for fleets by giving them the opportunity to be able to house fueling stations on their property and along these corridors.
But if it's a fuel, I presume that means it's a fossil fuel, and so I want to understand, our viewers to understand, why is it then cleaner?
It is a fossil fuel. It's cleaner because the carbon intensity is lower than diesel and petroleum, and it burns
chemistry.
cleaner.
Just
chemistry.
Right.
And it produces, when it's burned, lower GHG emissions. One of the benefits also of using renewable natural gas is that you also are able to reduce NOx, which is a criteria pollutant that is negatively impacting some of these trade corridor communities. And so with the ability to be able to reduce NOx and GHG emissions, we think biomethane is a key.
So I presume that you and your organization are celebrating, because we can call it the AB 32 extension, we can call it SB 32, but what we do know is that the legislature has passed, governor anticipated to sign, the piece of legislation that extends the 2006 Global Climate Warming Act that was so pioneering. What it does, as I understand it, is it requires that California slash GHG emissions to 40% below 1990 levels by 2030, as opposed to hitting 1990 levels in 2020.
Correct, and we are in a unique position of businesses that actually benefit from California's climate policies.
Okay.
And so our members are using the low carbon fuel standard, which is what SB 32 extends and actually puts in the statute. It was created through an executive order, which can be changed depending on who's governor. So when you put it in a statute now, it becomes a little bit more solid.
I see.
And one of the things that our businesses rely on is certainty and market certainty. And by having this bill now in statute and passing the legislature, it is a huge benefit to businesses that are involved in the actual creating of cleaner fuels.
What about your industry specifically? How does the California Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition benefit because of SB 32?
So we are using low carbon fuel standard credits in order to create parity with the cost of producing fuels.
This is not cap and trade credits.
This is not cap and trade. This is low carbon fuel standard. And so in order to create natural gas, in order to create renewable natural gas, it is an expensive thing to do anything new in California or any other state. And so the low carbon fuel standard allows us to be able to use credits that helps bring those costs down to allow us to be on par with petroleum and diesel production.
Are these credits sold like an auction with like cap and trade, or is it a completely different marketplace?
It's a completely different market. I think, one of the things, and I appreciate that question, because one of the things I think that's unclear is how low carbon fuel standard works versus how cap and trade works. And I want to say that this is probably the thing that most folks are really confused about. The low carbon fuel standard is a credit type market-based strategy. So it allows folks to be able to generate credits by producing fuel, and then when you create an alternative fuel, it gives you the value of the credit. And so that difference is actual dollars that you can then use to offset those costs.
So you're not selling like you are in cap and trade,
Correct.
per se. It's more of a traditional credit model.
Correct.
Kind of almost a tax credit model, whatever it may be.
Correct.
So I want to get a sense from you about the politics behind this passage, because there were concerns that this would not pass. And I understand even the White House got involved in pushing nervous, I'll say Democrats, because that's basically what it was, nervous Democrats to get behind SB 32.
Yeah, no, I heard that rumor as well, and I appreciate the White House stepping up and applying some pressure there. I think, you know, in this day and age, we have a lot of things to consider, and I think members, rightfully so, are concerned and have been concerned with how some of this money has been spent in their districts. And I think it's a valid concern. But I also don't believe that you should throw the baby out with the bathwater in the sense and we let the perfect get in the way of the good. And these policies are creating jobs in California. They are helping communities breathe cleaner air, and there's still work to be done. And I think that that's important. And it was nice to see that message resonated with members.
But part of the allure to some of the initial AB 32, now the extension, was cap and trade and the auction and the revenue that would spill off of the auction. But you know better than I that the last two auctions have not gone very well.
Correct.
Now, is that because there was uncertainty about cap and trade? Is that because the market's drying up? What's your read, sir?
I think that market uncertainty plays a huge role, and I think that really hasn't been addressed. I mean, imagine if someone asked you to buy a house in 2016, knowing that they were going to tear it down in 2020.
I understand.
Would you enter into a 30-year loan? Probably not. And so I think being so close to that 2020 deadline and not having the surety necessary that it was going to be extended to allow these credits and these programs to move forward did create some uncertainty. And I think that the legislature, by dealing with SB 32 and really being able to address and show some backbone, if you will, and some support of this measure, was able to create some uncertainty. So I think that the next few auctions should produce some better results.
So part of the reason why some would argue SB 32 passed was the accompanying AB 197, which created some more, I guess you could say, transparency, oversight. What do you think about AB 197?
Well, we are in support of AB 197. It was double joined SB 32, and so we are in support of both of those bills. So we believe that AB 197 is a great first step.
Okay.
It does contain about 7 provisions that provide some change in how ARB does its business.
Right, which is ARB, the
Air Resources Board.
The
correct.
controversial Air Resources Board.
Yes, very controversial. Yes. And so, but I also think that the bill strikes a balance between being able to create more accountability and transparency, but also not handcuffing the board from doing the job that it's supposed to do, creating cleaner air.
I want to ask you, voters have had a chance to repeal AB 32. They didn't overwhelmingly. We still see recalcitrance from friends on the Republican side.
Sure.
Are you concerned about that this seems to be just a one-party? I guess Catherine Baker, one Republican did go up on it. But are you concerned that this continues to be a Democratic train?
No, I'm not. I think that there was a recent PPIC poll that showed 68% of Californians still believe in the goals and policies that climate.
You'll come back?
Yes.
Okay. His name is Thomas Lawson. My name is Brad Pomerance, Local Edition.